Hey, what's up, spooky fam? It is already, like, we're a little late this month, but we're already wrapping up the movies we watched in June. I feel like June is already, like, so far away. The films we watched at the beginning of June just feel like it was such a long time ago, but we did watch around 30 movies in June. So we're going to recap all of that today. As always, if you would like to follow along with what we're watching on Letterboxd in between these videos, I will leave it linked down below. You can also check out all of my other links if you would like to see any more of me or support the channel any further. Let's get right into everything we watched in the month of June. Okay, so altogether we did watch 34 movies, starting off on the first with the documentary Movie Pass, Movie Crash, which, as someone who was kind of pretty far removed from the Movie Pass situation as a Canadian, I didn't really, like, we don't have anything like that really here, so it really wasn't a doc for me, but it was still very interesting. But following that, we watched a documentary that is on, like, every disturbing documentary list, and that is Capturing the Friedmans. This is from 2003, and it was pretty disturbing. But if you go, like, there's so many rabbit holes to go down when researching this documentary, so I highly recommend, like, if you're going to watch it, like, definitely do a lot of research. Okay, we followed that up. Speaking of disturbing films, we followed that up with Cutting Moments. I've only seen Cutting Moments through, like, Spooky Rice. If you guys watch Spooky Rice, he does, like, a disturbing breakdown of movies, and that's the only time that I've really seen Cutting Moments. So to finally watch that for myself, I genuinely winced at a few, like, that one was kind of hard for me to get through. When she started scrubbing her lips off, that was it for me. But on the first, we also ended our night by watching Mimic by Guillermo del Toro. This was like a older film that we hadn't seen. Very fun watch. Stay tuned for possibly a bug horror video. On the second, I cannot believe we had not seen Shrooms. It was a first time watch. At least I hadn't seen it. I don't remember if Alex saw it, but it was definitely a great afternoon watch. I think that, like, we were organizing movies or whatever that day. It was so fun to just have on and as, like, an afternoon watch. I highly recommend it if you like stupid movies. And speaking of stupid movies, we followed that up with Sorority House Massacre from 1986. And while it wasn't, like, the best film, like I've said to you guys a million times, I'm just trying to, like, complete my 80s horror knowledge. So that's where that comes from. Speaking of 80s, we watched a film called Dr. Caligari, and this film is horny. It's on Shudder, and honestly, it is, the way that the dialogue is presented in this film, it feels like it's a stage play, but it feels like very, yeah, you see, I don't know how else to, like, tell you how the dialogue sounds, but I don't know, it's very, like, matter of fact, it's very strange, weird visuals, very horny. Big fan. And then we watched on the 5th Under Paris, which came out this year, which is by Xavier Gens, who we have talked about Frontiers, a couple other of his films. This one was very pro-cop, very anti-shark pro-cop. That's what I got out of it. But it did have some pretty cool, like, the catacombs, like, murder massacre, shark massacre scene. If you've seen it, you know it's pretty cool. On the 7th, we watched The Strangers Chapter 1, and I'm still very upset about this movie. Like, I was just on board for the original Strangers. We rewatched it. I thought it was a 4 out of 5. I thought it was a fantastic film. I thought the new one was absolute horseshit. Like, I was so upset by the end of the film by how much it just felt like a mockery of the original Strangers, you know? And I'm really not looking forward to 2 more installments in this world. But right after that, on the 7th, we watched a documentary that had been on my radar for a while. If you guys remember, a little while ago, I mentioned a documentary called Some Kind of Heaven, directed by Lance Oppenheim, and it was about a retirement like community and how dystopian it felt. This is also just horrific. Another documentary directed by Lance Oppenheim, and it is about men who donate their sperm for various reasons, and it is so funny because I heard about this on Colors of the Dark podcast. Rebecca McKendry, shout out, recommended this, and she said that she was in an Uber with, like, the guy driving was he's like, I was just in a Lance Oppenheim documentary. I believe she was at like a film fest, and she was like, oh, which one? And he said it was called Sperm World. And so the whole time I'm watching and I'm like, Alex, there's a guy that was Rebecca McKendry's Uber driver, and we gotta figure out which one it was. And if you guys watch it, try to figure it out. Try to figure out who's the Uber driver, because you will realize near the end who it is, and he's a scary guy. He's just a weird guy. But like, honestly, like, if you guys like a really cringe, almost like very unnerving, he shoots his documentaries in such a weird, unnerving way. Like, don't sleep on, like, the title. Like, don't let the title scare you. Sperm World. Like, genuinely check it out. We watched so many movies at the beginning of June. Okay, also on the 7th, we watched All About Evil, finally. I said I would report back. Fantastic film. What a fantastic film. Honestly, go in blind, but just expect it to be campy, fun, very campy, but very stupid and very fun. Very up my alley. I could not recommend it enough. It's on Shudder right now. And then to finish off on the 7th, we watched Donnie Darko with Joe Bob, of course. That was to start the summer school series they did. So that was the first week. And you know what? I'm still confused. It was a good film. I really enjoyed it more this time. Like, I was very young when I saw it the first time. But going in this time, I was like, okay, I'm ready to be confused. I know what's going on. I'm just here to enjoy the film. And with Joe Bob's commentary, it makes it so much better. Okay, there are a few non-horror movies on this list, but as always, I'll try to breeze through them. Starting off with, on the 8th, we watched Am I Okay?, which is the Dakota Johnson Am I Gay movie, which I was so mad about how much I related to her character. It was like, did you guys watch my life? Is this play about me? It was really good. I enjoyed it for what it was. We did watch another documentary, Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini, who I am a huge fan of. If you guys follow him on Instagram, he's been posting his artwork and it is just sublime. But this is really like a love letter to Tom Savini, and I believe it's on Tubi. I would check it out if you can find it. But speaking of a movie that was on Tubi that I didn't realize that would actually scare me, and not in like the way that I thought it would, but it was the Poughkeepsie tapes. We might have to debrief a little more about this in an upcoming video about actual scenes that like really did scare me. And it wasn't like I knew what I was getting into with the movie, but I didn't I feel like I've seen it and I just wiped it out of my brain. So I like considered this a first watch. And it comes a point where there's a scene of one of the tapes and the guy is like doing, it looks like a spider crawl, but it's not, because the mask is positioned on his head in a weird way and he's crawling around, and that's just that image, it makes me just of a man acting a fool like that just makes me feel so uncomfortable. I did not realize how much that would sit with me, and like now when I see people post about it, I just get the ick. Ugh. Okay, moving on to a couple of rewatches. Watch Them That Follow. I watched this a long time ago, but Alex hadn't seen it, and I did not realize that Walton Goggins was in it. Love him so much, and did not realize how scary he was in this film. It's about like people in Appalachia who believe that the snakes are like deciding your fate. Like a very cult situation. Pretty good movie. And after that, we decided to do a rewatch on Barbarian because we watched all 5 seasons of The Whitest Kids You Know, and then I re-listened to the Colors of the Dark episode with Zach Krager on it to kind of prepare myself before rewatching Barbarian, and I feel like I enjoyed it so much more because I could feel Zach Krager in that movie. Like you can tell that that's his voice coming through the script. Also, Barbarian, Justin Long. Did you guys see that Justin Long and his brother are directing a segment in the new VHS? I'm so excited. It is the best time of the year when we get a new VHS film, and it comes out so close to Terrifier 3. It's gonna be an awesome Halloween this year. Alright, on June 9th, we watched a film called Extremity. And this is by a director that we are familiar with. I cannot think of off the top of my head what he directed. Oh, The Last Shift. All of his films, like if you look on Letterboxd, all of his films have this like really grimy sort of gore to it. But I don't feel like I got that kind of payoff. And this one was about like extreme haunts. And I really wanted more from it. The last little bit was cool, but it really was. It played for so long. And then followed that up with I Used to Be Funny. We actually got a screener for this from Utopia Films. Shout out Utopia. They are wonderful for always supporting all of our like channels here. I actually really loved this film. It was told, like it's a story. I don't want to ruin it for you, but if you like Rachel Sennett in any way, shape, or form, like definitely put this one on your radar. But it is told in such a way where it keeps you, like it's a mystery. Like you're wondering what actually happened, like right until it's revealed, and then you're like, oh my god, I hate cops. Oh my god. Anyways, moving on to a film. So there's a director, Catherine, I have to look her name up because this movie was wild. So her name was Catherine Breillat, and she's a French director, but she is a very controversial director, and that's why I kind of wanted to start diving into her filmography. Very controversial to the point where her new movie that just came out recently last summer is about a female who enjoys the company of a minor, which we do not support around here, but the film is like getting such crazy buzz around it, and that's what makes me like intrigued about this director. So anyways, we watched one of her films called Anatomy of Hell, and it was so shocking, and I think I talked about this before on this channel. Where am I? It was, for a disturbing film, if you like disturbing films, like definitely seek it out. It is quite shocking. It is about a woman who like wants a man to just kind of watch her where she should not be watched in the bedroom for a couple of days, and she pays him, but over the course of those couple of days, like things just escalate so much, and there's so many like awkward close-ups to the point where there's a flashback scene and she's talking about her childhood where I feel like she was discovering her sexuality, and it was a scene where a young girl was playing doctor with a bunch of young boys, and she lays under something where only the top half of her body is covered and the bottom half is fully shown. And at the beginning it says that all of the like lady bits are fake, and I have a bad feeling. Like, I have a genuinely bad feeling that I saw something in that movie that I shouldn't have seen, and I think that was a child used in that scene, and I don't think that they, like, I don't know, it makes me so uncomfortable to think about and talk about, and I feel like that's the reaction you should have. Like, you should not be like, hey, no, like, it's bad. Okay, it's bad, and it should make you feel bad. But anyway, she has a controversial direct. I'm just gonna keep going in circles here because I'm just trying to, like, you guys know I love disturbing films and I love controversy and I love things like that, but it's like I'm trying to, like, dig to the why. Why are these films being made? Like, what are you doing here? You know, like, that's why I made my Larry Clark video. That's why I made my Harmony Korine video. And I feel like those definitely have two different outcomes. And I feel like I'm still, like, Larry Clark is a great director, but maybe not, still thinking about the hell, how do you do fellow kids meme? That's okay, anyways, moving on to I Saw the TV Glow, which is a fantastic film. I really did think, like I said in my trailer reaction, that we were going to get more of like a season 1 Channel Zero vibe, and it wasn't like that at all. For someone who has such vivid memories of things that I watched when I was a kid, and I have so much nostalgia in my brain, and I feel like I'm just living in a time that I can't escape. I'm collecting VHS tapes to fill a void in my heart. Like, I don't know. I feel like my tapes are my I Saw the TV Glow, you know? Like, I'm searching for that feeling, and I blinked and I'm 30, and I'm trying to just grasp onto, like, my youth. I don't know, that movie really did provoke a lot of feelings, and it was really, really, really good. Very well done. I bawled my eyes out for the last little bit. Highly recommend. And then after that, for a palate cleanser, we watched Winnie the Pooh 2 Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2. Not a good film by any means, but it was worlds better than the first one. But I feel like it's one of those films where you have to watch the first one to understand the second one. It does really do well as a sequel, and as a big fan of sequels, I liked it. It had really good gore, and I'm here for gore. Another movie that we're just gonna kind of glaze over, The Double from 2013 with Jesse Eisenberg and Mia Wasikowska. Very weird. It was not a movie for me. But on the 16th, we watched Body Melt from 1993. And I mean, here once again for the gore. It is what it is. I like those kind of films. All right, this next one, we're gonna chat for a second because this is actually a film. We're gonna go back to Colors of the Dark podcast and talk about Elric Kane for a second because this is his recommendation, the other co-host of Colors of the Dark. I heard him recommend this because there was a thing, I forget where it was, I think somewhere in California. They were doing a thing called Bleak Week where they were just showing the most absolute, just bleakest films. And this is one of them, 29 Palms. And it was a film that I couldn't stop thinking about once I heard Elric talk about it. And when we finally watched it, like, I fully understood why. Like, for 90% of this film, you're just following a couple, one that speaks English, one that speaks French, so you are getting subtitled in there, in case you guys don't like that kind of thing. I do. You're just watching them, like, live their life. Read my review if you'd like a more explicit explanation, but they're just living their lives, like, touring the Palm Springs area, and at the end there is one singular act of violence that leads to, like, a bigger lead up and, like, payoff. But it's those, like, last 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes that really did stick with me and made me understand why this fit into, like, Bleak Week, because this film is bleak. It's really good. It's really well done. A lot of sex. a lot of sex. But the end payoff is like, oh my god. And for the first time, like, spoiler, like, if you don't want a spoiler, like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it is not male on female violence, really. It is, the primary thing here is, like, male on male violence, and it definitely makes me think of Deliverance in a way. Very good film. Okay, after that, we watched The Monster finally, because I did recommend it in an A24 film that you guys probably hadn't heard of video. And a lot of you actually have seen The Monster and really liked it, but once again, it's just not a film that was for me. I enjoyed it. It was a good late night, rainy night watch, but for me, it's just not a film that I would gravitate towards. But the next day we watched a horror comedy. It wasn't really a horror, it was just more of like a stupid, like mindless comedy, but I guess it would fall into like the small creature horror category. It's called Save Yourselves, and I believe I've recommended it before, but it's about a couple who just kind of turn off their electronics for a while and then aliens invade. It's funny, like it's genuinely funny. Okay, on the 21st, we watched the second installment to Joe Bob's Summer School, and that was Suitable Flesh, and that was another rewatch, and that was another one that is horny as all hell. Great film. Great film. I love Joe Lynch. I love Joe Lynch so much. I think he is such a fantastic director, and I love that he was on The Last Drive-In for a good portion of the show. I loved that episode. It was so fun to watch. And then the next day, because I wanted to watch this movie anyways, but I didn't realize that Joe Bob actually did an episode. So the next day we watched the Last Drive-In episode for Habit, directed by one of my favorite directors, Larry Fessenden, and it was from 1995. This is very, as Joe Bob would say, New York grime. It is in the, like, is she a vampire? Like, it's like Vampire's Kiss if it were played very seriously and possibly a little more real. I don't know. I really enjoyed it, but it was too long. It was very long. I think the episode for, like, The Last Drive-In was almost 3 hours in total, and it was very long. After Habit, we did a rewatch of Society. It was my second watch, but Alex's first watch. I'm a big Brian Yuzna fan. We've been watching a lot of Brian Yuzna films recently, The Dentist being one of them, but we'll talk about that next month. Yeah, I just love Society so much. It's one of my favorite 80s films, even though it's 89. I could rewatch that movie over and over again. On the 25th though, we watched Furiosa, and it's Furiosa, not Furiosa. No, we watched Furiosa and it was really, really good. I kind of expected to go into it thinking that Chris Hemsworth would like throw me off and like ruin the whole movie for me, and while I did not like him in that film, I thought it was such an enthralling, just like action-packed adventure ride that I was on from the first frame. And I am like trying to get my parents to watch the Mad Max Fury Road Furiosa like combo. Like, comment down below if you think my parents should watch those films, because they watch like exclusively Marvel films, DC films, and like natural disaster films. So like we gotta get them out of their box. Okay, we have 3 films left, starting with In a Violent Nature. I have made a few videos about the ABCs of death, and I've mentioned that Z is for Zygote is my favorite segment, one of my favorite segments at least, and it is directed by Chris Nash, who is the director of In a Violent Nature, and I knew that I would love this film right from the announcement. All I needed to know was who was behind it, and I was in. The gore in this film legitimately brought me to tears because I was so happy to finally see practical effects like this. Like, we get Damien Leone practical effects and they are so over the top, so crazy, but it just felt like it was in such a beautiful setting that we're getting these kills. And if you've seen it, you know the yoga kill. Oh my god, I was crying. I like clapped. I was so excited. I don't care that there was minimal dialogue. I don't care that it was a walking simulator. When it comes to the payoff that we got from that film, I would watch that. That is a film that I would watch for 3 hours. Hands down. A film that I would not watch for 3 hours though, we watched on the 29th, it was Aggro Drift. And I did just mention Harmony Korine. He is one of my favorite directors. I was looking forward to this. And it was very freaking cool. It was very cool. Really, really, really cool. But really hard on the eyes. You think a Gaspar Noé film was hard on the eyes? I think Harmony Korine's been hanging around with Gaspar Noé for too long, because this was kind of hard to watch. Like, I needed to take some aspirin after watching this one. But you know what? It's at the point where you can't ever complain about films like this, because we need more original concepts. We need people to just like let their freak flag fly and make some weird ass shit. And then we ended the month on the 30th watching Cat Person. Finally, this was on my list forever, and it was about like it's about guys being gross. And it was shocking because the guy that is like a bad guy in this film is Nicholas Braun from Succession. And if you guys have watched Succession, you know Cousin Greg, and you know that he's a fucking doorknob. And I don't know, seeing him as a character where he is a real scumbag, I feel like it was such a contrast, and it shows that he can play more than just like the dumb cousin character, and it worked. It did also feature Geraldine Viswanathan, who I will literally watch anything that she's in. And then also stars Amelia Jones, who you guys probably recognize from Incident in a Ghostland, and that's where I knew her from. She was very good in this film. Yeah, would recommend. So if you guys wanna, like I mentioned, I did not want to chat for half an hour, but here we are. If you guys would like to follow me on Letterboxd, it is linked down below. I'm tired, I'm done. That's all for today's video. I will see you guys very soon. Sayonara, Spooky fam.